And a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. My name is Jeff Owens, Interim Director at WEIU TV and Radio. My co-host is Mr. Dan Jones.
Hi, Jeff. I'm glad to be back.
And our guest today, making her initial appearance here at WEIU Radio, is Dr. Ann Flaherty. Welcome, Dr. Flaherty.
Thank you.
I'm going to have you pull that mic up just a little bit to you.
Very good.
And Dr. Flaherty is the new Vice President for Student Affairs here at the campus of Eastern Illinois University. And so we've got to know her a little bit this semester, but I just want to welcome you and then maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself and then we'll get started.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Dan. I'm so happy to be here today. I got to see the studio a couple weeks ago and get a tour and was really impressed. So thanks for having me back as a guest. A little bit about me. I started here as the Vice President for Student Affairs the end of July. Certainly has been an interesting time to start a new position in higher ed with the pandemic, but it's been going remarkably well. How I got here, I was doing a national job search last spring looking for positions as a Vice President for Student Affairs. My career has been in higher ed. And I knew of EIU through a former staff member who worked for me. He was a graduate of EIU and also worked in housing and dining. And he always spoke so fondly of his time at Eastern. And so when the announcement came up for the job, it sparked my curiosity. At the time, I was working for a university in St. Louis, and my family actually is in the Indianapolis area, so it's a great location. I am a Midwesterner. I grew up in a small town in Iowa, about almost the exact same size as Charleston. Went to the University of Iowa, so I'm definitely a Midwesterner. So yeah, and then once I went through the interview process, which was interesting, as you can imagine, during a pandemic, my entire day-long interview was virtual, which I've done this some now, but I'd never done before. And it's a tricky way really to learn about a job and to learn about the folks, but I definitely could feel folks' passion for EIU through that interview, their commitment to the institution. And so when President Glassman offered me the job, I was so excited. But I did ask him if I could come to campus and put my feet on the ground. That was really important for me. So I drove myself over and did a tour of campus, had a little time with the president and a couple other members of the the president's council, and just had a good feeling. It's a beautiful campus. I definitely felt people's EIU blood run blue. How do we say?
Bleed blue, yeah.
Bleed blue, thank you.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to my future here and working with the Division of Student Affairs and my colleagues across the university and, of course, the students.
How do you acclimate to starting a new job, like, Vice President of Student Affairs? Do you do kind of sit back and watch, or do you get feet wet right in, or how's that work?
Yeah. Well, again, I'll probably mention this a couple times. The way you approach things right now looks a little different in the pandemic. But, normally being a very relational person, I'm an extrovert. If you're familiar with strengths, I'm a woo. I love to get out and meet people in person and students. And so it's been challenging because, the relationships you can build through a phone call or through a video meeting look and feel a little different. But I've still tried to do that. I've met individually with the various deans on campus, of course, President's Cabinet, of course, all my staff, my direct reports, and I'm continuing to meet all the other staff. I engage with students through the student government, and I'm doing outreach now to different registered student organizations. So, I think, fortunately, my predecessor left me great information about how things were done, how things had happened through the impasse and what changes have happened. Great colleagues have helped orient me. So, you dive in, you read the information, you do research, and you talk to people, and then you start to make decisions about how to move the division forward.
Daniel?
It seems as you remain positive throughout this whole thing. Can you kind of tell us how have you been able to remain so positive through all this? Are there any kind of special stress relievers you do or mantras you say to yourself or anything like that?
Thank you. I appreciate that question. I think just by nature, I think that I am a positive person. I think it comes naturally for me. I kind of, it's just how I roll, I guess. But I would say, I do nurture that intentionally through activities like yoga and meditation. Take time for quiet reflection. There's a lot of noise in our world. I worry about that for our students with the continuous online on their phones and being connected. And part of me struggles with this whole virtual environment we're in, because there's a tremendous amount of Zoom fatigue. I've done things like with my staff. I've said to them, if you ever want to have a meeting with me and you want to turn off your camera and still meet with me, that's fine. There's a lot of data that suggests just that constant, virtual connection is exhausting. So, I just make it intentional. I love to get outside. The weather's been fabulous. I've been to the lake a lot to hike. I've been hiking the trails around here. I definitely try to get some sort of exercise every day. Eventually, I want to get to the rec, but right now I'm just trying to save the space for the students since we have a limited number.
When you think of Eastern Illinois and what you can bring, what do you think your strengths are that you can bring to our campus for the future?
Yeah. Well, I've had the fortunate opportunity to have worked at quite a few different institutions. I've worked at a couple of private institutions. My background is at public. I went to the University of Iowa and did my master's and PhD at the University of Kansas. And I've also worked at a med school. So I have a really broad background, and I think that allows me to really draw on those experiences and think about, what did I learn here that might make sense here? Again, I think the relational piece is extremely important at Eastern. I believe that's kind of expected among colleagues, as well as students really expect that from their administrators. It's kind of a small school feel here, and I think that serves me well. I want to look out for and advocate for all students. I'm very aware and care about diversity and equity and inclusion issues, and I'm incredibly mindful of that right now that's going on in our nation, and so I'm trying to be intentional about my outreach to support all students and make sure that they feel safe and valued on this campus. Yeah.
To talk to students, I thought you should ask the next one.
Speaking of diversity and inclusion, what are some things you may be thinking about or have planned right now for those specific purposes for students of minorities on campus?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, one of the things I'm trying to do is forge good partnerships with our colleagues on campus that have specifically been charged with advocating for diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I would also say that is all of our responsibilities. It doesn't fall on the shoulders of one person, say Dr. Mona Davenport. But certainly we are looking at ways we could partner. For example, we just put up the WEIU flagpole, and I don't want to take credit for that because that was in the works pre-me, but we did get that flag up and pull up, and it's a great opportunity for us to represent different cultural and heritage months through a flag representation. Do want to acknowledge that today is First Generation College Celebration Day. We have a large first-gen population here at EIU, and we should celebrate that. And today is the national day to do so. So I partnered with the Mona Davenport also in doing that. So still learning. I want to hear what students' needs are, and I want to help support them and advocate for them. Yeah.
When, do you have a timeline of when you would like to implement changes in some of your people that you or programs that you're over, or do you kind of evaluate this entire year? Then maybe next year is implementation time. Talk us through that.
Yeah, I think in a normal year, a non-COVID year, you would say, most people would probably say, take a full year, go through a full cycle, and and make sure you understand the culture and make sure you understand their traditions. But I would say I already feel like I've missed out on a bit of that in COVID. Like, homecoming came and went, and I definitely felt a lot of kind of disappointment and sadness around, the loss of that experience. So, even next fall, I hope, if we're in normal times again, I think it would be good to see some of those traditions in person. So, as far as a set timeline, not specifically, there may be things that come along that, drive you to make a decision because of, maybe you have to make a budget decision, or maybe a staff member leaves, so you make a decision about staffing. But I have no set timeline to do that. I want to do what makes the most sense and through thorough research.
No, that makes sense, exactly. Yeah. What's a typical day for a vice president of student affairs? I mean, I know that we're in COVID, so it's harder to answer, but take us through what you think would be a normal day, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I've never sat at my desk so much in my life and had meetings, which I don't love. I love being out in the space with students. I like walking through the union. I like going to events, and so this does not feel at all like what I would expect. So I hope moving forward, that I can, be present and engage with students, and as well as go to meetings with colleagues across the campus and be visible and talk to alumni and certainly work with the trustees. But right now I spend quite a bit of time in my office, honestly, in meetings and meeting with folks. I encourage folks to meet me out for a walking meeting, those sorts of things. But in a typical, even in non-COVID times, there are a lot of meetings. I think you have to be selective in things that maybe you are invited to, because your calendar can just fill up with meetings. So, but right now I've really not turned anything down. Any opportunity I get to connect is a good opportunity. So I would say what's different now is there aren't nearly as many evening and weekend commitments, because things just aren't really going on, and we need to do that to keep people safe. So that I hope will look different in the future.
Speaking of being safe in COVID, what have you seen so far as we've all kind of watched the students and the employees of EIU adapt on the fly to COVID and masking and restrictions? So talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say overall I've been quite impressed with folks' compliance, especially students with their compliance with masking. I tend to try to walk the campus every day, and there have been many days I haven't had to remind anyone to wear a mask, and I really don't want to be the masking police. That is not, but I like to get out and about and see what's going on. It's a difficult time, right? When students come to college, they come to college to have these interactive experiences, to engage in RSOs and to go to sporting events and to be together. And essentially we're telling you, don't do that. And so it's not natural. And a part of me, my heart breaks that this is the experience that a college student is having. It breaks for everybody, but especially it can be a very special time in your life. So, yeah.
Speaking of some of those things you just named, what are some of the important factors that you believe contribute to student success?
Sure, that's a good question. Certainly what we talk about are what high impact practices, right? And so those are things such as small class sizes, which EIU offers, engaging with faculty, whether it be on a research project or in some sort of project. Certainly civic engagement and service learning, those are the things that contribute to retention. Certainly, early alert systems in place, so when a student is struggling, that we know early on and we don't get all the way till December to finals. We have a great housing and dining department here, and our residence life staff are engaged with students and serve as those early alerts as well.
Have you had to deal with families too so much yet? I know we always talk about the students, but really the families are also part of the process.
Absolutely. I would say to date, I have not interacted with as many parents as I have at previous institutions. I don't know if that's just the environment we're in or if that's just more the culture here, but certainly, if a parent would reach out to me, I'd be happy to visit with them. If I don't have the answer, I might put them in touch with one of my directors or call them back, but yeah.
Okay. What's the best thing so far you like about EIU?
Wow, let's see. I would just say, gosh, I hate to just say one because there's a lot of great things.
Well, how about your top two or three then?
Okay. I would definitely say the Division of Student Affairs staff. We have some incredibly dedicated, hardworking people that, have had some difficult years here at Eastern, and yet, their resolve is amazing and they're very dedicated. I haven't got to interact with as many students as I'd hoped, but those who I have been incredible, and I look forward to building those relationships. Enjoy my relationship with the President Glassman. It's just all been positive. I hope to, moving forward, have more connections in the community. I haven't been able to do that as much as I would like. Again, somewhat limited.
Yeah. We're kind of a little bit hogtied in that situation. But, the other thing, with social media and technology,
Yes,
it's really changed the way we do things. So talk about how, social media and the technology. Zoom, like 9 minutes ago, nobody knew what Zoom was.
Yeah.
And now it's just part of our everyday life. Talk about how that has changed and maybe helped, but also hindered maybe as well.
For sure, yeah. I wasn't as familiar with Microsoft Teams before I came here, but I'm certainly familiar with that now. I was more of a Zoom user before. Absolutely, it's a great way. There's a big difference between you can see somebody and have a discussion versus over the phone. I think body language we communicate a lot, so I think it's very important. Social media, I think, it can be both a blessing and curse, if I can be really honest. I, as an administrator, I like to connect with students. If they reach out to me, I don't invite students per se, but if they reach out to me, I'm happy to connect with them. But I do like to tweet about and put on Instagram what is going on. For example, Family Weekend was this weekend, and there was a recipe that was picked for best dessert recipe, so I took a picture of the dessert so people could see what it was. So, in the virtual environment helped us out to still have our Family Weekend and homecoming, not in the way we've used to, but at least we were able to maintain some tradition.
How do you deal with stressful situations, or not everything is always great every day, but how does Dr. Ann Flaherty deal with the stress?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I talked about that a minute ago, in terms of I make it a priority. I do try to meditate a little bit every morning right when I wake up, and I do try to do yoga most mornings and some other type of physical activity throughout the day. I rely heavily on my student affairs and higher ed colleagues if I need to vent or complain about something. I have a couple of great groups of friends from grad school that I stay connected to. So friends, family, I have a family, I have 3 sons that provide great support and stress.
You've mentioned your staff a few times. Obviously they've welcomed you, but talk about the welcoming and maybe some of the things they've done to make it a little bit smoother for you to come over to EIU.
Yeah, for sure. My immediate staff, Dr. Jenny Sipes and Ann Lewis, were so kind when I showed up. They had a Eastern Illinois welcome basket of all kinds of things, including a homemade blue mask that one of them made or had made. Someone gave me some homemade jelly that their spouse made. I think it's just those little things, and just before I started, I reached out and asked folks to tell me a little bit about themselves, and I got a great response, and so I got to learn about individuals that way. Again, connecting a bit through social media. And just every time I have a staff meeting, dedicating a little time to seeing what is going on with people personally before diving into the meeting.
Dan?
On the student affairs section of the EIU website, there is a section just for freedom of expression. Do you feel student freedom of expression is important, and if so, how is student affairs helping students express themselves?
Yeah, it's a good and very timely question. Absolutely. So Eastern Illinois has a dedicated space on campus, the free speech zone, which is the library quad area and the Mellon Steps. And so that's been great to see, how people have expressed themselves, whether through chalking on the steps or other. We've certainly had some guests to campus that have expressed their views that have drawn some attention from students, and that's a good thing, because civil discourse and conversations around these topics are what make us better and stronger, and is an important part of our democracy. So absolutely, especially on the heels of an election, this is so important that we have space and encourage folks to express their views in a civil way.
We're obviously coming off the election, but the other thing is, obviously, with COVID and the numbers have been up here in Coles County and the state the last few weeks, it's actually been a little bit scary. Do you think we'll make it through this semester with the current hybrid learning, or is that I know that's the goal,
Yeah.
but your gut feeling?
Yeah, certainly on my mind a lot. I think I'm so encouraged we've made it this far. I think if you'd asked me back in August, I wouldn't have said, yes, we'll make it to November. So I'm really proud of our students. About 6 weeks ago, our numbers were going up drastically over about a 3-week period, and we really pushed messaging hard and talked to our student leaders and said, we gotta turn the tide here, or we're not gonna make it. It's a gift. It's a gift to be here in person, but it requires everybody to do their part. So yes, things are not going well within our county and the state and the nation for that matter, but amazingly, our numbers among students for the last 3 weeks have held really steady. And we did go into Tier 1 mitigation last Monday. It'll be for at least 2 weeks. I think that helps because it's put some limitations. We're discouraging in-person dining in the halls. We're asking people to take their food out, really to limit social events to no more than 10 people. So I'll be curious to see what our numbers look like this week and next, because we'll be in the whole 2-week period. So I'm hopeful that we can make it through the rest of the semester, because I believe students want to be here. I do. And you're paying to be here, and this is an experience you want to have, and we're doing our best to help you have that experience.
I think one of the things is it's hard to keep people to not be complacent. It is, we don't need to wipe down this time. We don't need to wear a mask. We're just walking across the quad or whatever. And so I think it's tough for people to constantly be reminded, and that complacency is a big fear. Do you think being a small campus helps with that complacency? or a smaller campus, I guess you would say?
Does this being okay, yeah, I think I do. I think because there's a sense of community, and like I need to do my part, or I may, it might impact my maybe my Greek organization or my RSO or my athletic team. Absolutely, I think there's less anonymity, if you will. Yeah, but I get it. I get the masking fatigue is real. I get the, not getting together with people is real. But we just have to stay vigilant, because it just takes a couple incidents, and you have those spikes, right? Outbreaks.
Yeah. Go ahead, Danny.
Do you have any advice for students who may be having a hard time with all that's going on, and they maybe want to kind of give up and kind of leave school, maybe even if it's for a while or just permanently? Do you have any advice for them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a hard one, because in normal times, a significant portion of students do experience mental health issues, right? Depression and anxiety among college students is not uncommon. And then you add on top of that a pandemic that really forces people to be in isolation, right? This year, all of our individuals living in the halls are in single rooms. And for some people, you might think, oh, that's a great thing. I've never had to share a room. But for most people, having that roommate is really important. And so I guess my advice would be is ask for help. Whether it's through your residence hall, whether it's through your faculty, whether it's through our counseling center, whether it's through our student affairs staff, don't sit in silence and suffer. Reach out, ask for help, because we're close to the finish line, and folks will then get a nice break before next semester. So I guess that would be my advice: is don't suffer in silence. Reach out.
When you do talk to Eastern students, what do they ask you the most?
They asked me about the pandemic a lot, and will we stay in class all this semester? I certainly have had conversations with students around racial injustice issues, concerns around the election. I think those are kind of the main themes, and just kind of wanting to get to know me and what I hope to do with students and for students while I'm here.
Are you a goal setter? Do you set goals for yourself and for your staff, and how do you track them afterwards?
Yeah, I do. I would call it, I would even go so far as doing strategic planning, which again is interesting, because we are so fixated right now on managing the pandemic that sometimes we can't quite see the trees through the forest. And so I've had this conversation. I recently had the opportunity to participate in a virtual workshop for new vice presidents of student affairs around the country. And this was one of the topics I raised with my peers, was how do we move the needle? How can we think bigger picture about strategic planning when, we're just so focused on COVID. And so it's a matter of carving out time. I'm already thinking about that, as we get to the end of the semester and kind of students are heading home, and our staff have a little extra time in the beginning of next semester. Let's do some brainstorming. Let's talk about where we want to go and where we want to be as an organization.
Dane?
As a person who has lots of experience dealing with students, what are some general trends, positive and or negative, that you see in college students?
Mm-hmm. Well, I am so hopeful for this generation, especially, just seeing folks react in the previous weeks leading up to the election and getting involved and engaged. I'm hopeful for this generation in terms of their engagement. I do worry about their mental health. I know in the last decade, mental health issues, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation have increased significantly. And we could have a whole nother hour session about why I think that is the case, so I won't go into all that. But I do worry about that. I think we need to start earlier in K through 12 talking about resiliency and self-care and what messaging we're sending to students, like you must get 4.0s and you must be involved in every group. No, that's not what every student needs, right? I worry about students holistically. So I guess those are a couple of themes. I think I'm hopeful for the future for this generation. I think they're gonna do great things.
We've hammered you a lot on all the COVID stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit and let you enjoy telling us about your family and your husband and your kids and what they do and are doing and all that stuff.
Very good. Yeah. So my husband Steve and I, we celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary this past spring. And
congratulations.
Thank you. We met in college at the University of Iowa. He is a hospital pharmacist. He still works in Indianapolis, where we had been living. We're in transition now. Let's see, we have 3 sons. Our oldest son, Ryan, he'll be 19 on Friday. He had started college this fall and decided that because of the experience he was having, he wanted to put a pause on college, but his goal is to go back to college. He wants to be a high school teacher. My middle son, Quinn, is in 10th grade, and he's excited. He'll be driving here soon. And then my youngest son, Ian, is in 7th grade, and he's a big sports guy. So, yeah.
Anything else we should know about Dr. Ann Flaherty, as we have a few minutes left today with you?
Well, I'm still learning, so, if this is interactive, I'd love to hear from you all what maybe I should know about Charleston, Coles County, what maybe I should try out if I haven't already experienced yet. I'm excited about the future. I love learning. I love being a part of a team, and I'm excited to be a Panther.
One of the things about students, I always like to, when we have obviously a few students around helping us out today, is it open door policy in your office where people can come in, or do they need to make an appointment? Talk about, I know there's different rules now with COVID, but what's your rules?
Absolutely, yes. If I'm in my office, my door is open unless I'm in a meeting or if I have a pressing deadline, but absolutely, a pop-in from a student would make my day. It would make me smile. So absolutely.
I know Daniel asked the question, but I'll ask you a little bit different. What about if the students who are listening out there today are going to watch one of the repeats on TV this week? What is your advice to East Illinois University students for the next 4 or 5 weeks of the semester as we wrap this up?
Yeah, I would say stay the course with the mitigation strategies they're using for the pandemic. I would say practice self-care. I would say take a break from your electronic devices. Get outside.
That's the tough one.
Yeah, it's tough for all of us, isn't it? Ask for help if you need it. Reach out to your friends and family, and do your best. This is crunch time at the end of the semester.
Couple minutes left. Daniel, any other questions for Dr. Flaherty?
The holidays are coming up, and we saw with Halloween, majority of our holidays that are coming up are going to look extremely different than what we've been used to. So do you have anything planned for Thanksgiving and or Christmas?
It'll just be our immediate family, we believe. Indianapolis, my parents just relocated to Indianapolis recently, and so they will probably join us there. But my mother-in-law may come too. But other than that, just keep it low-key, have a meal, and be safe.
There you go. All right, I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions.
Oh, boy.
Now, we always end with what we call them the famous 8 or whatever.
Do I get a pass or two
if you can? You are the vice president of the university, so do you have a favorite sport?
Basketball.
Basketball, all right.
To watch or play?
Either one. You can do both if you want to see.
Basketball to play, walking if that's a sport for me.
I guess so. When things are right again, which we all hope will be soon, what is the first thing you would like to do?
I'd like to travel. I miss traveling.
Best part of the Thanksgiving meal will be?
Ooh, I love my mom's stuffing.
Noodles or no noodles?
No noodles.
No noodles. So there you go.
Yeah.
Do you have an all-time favorite actor or actress that you think when a movie comes out, I have to see that person?
I've always been a fan of Julia Roberts.
All right. Favorite mask? Everybody has their masks now. We all have variety.
I need my mask game. I had a few cute ones and I misplaced them. I'm gonna get some new ones here. My EIU ones, I guess, would probably be my favorite.
You get to work in a castle every day. How is working in a castle?
I forgot to talk about that at the beginning. When when I was interviewing and researching, I was like, oh my gosh, my office would be in a castle. So I remember talking about that in my interview. And I think it's just kind of cool symbolically. I got to go on the roof a few weeks back, and that was terrifying, but also very cool. I'm afraid of heights. So.
Do you have a hobby? I know you talked about yoga and stuff. Anything else that we need to know about?
I like to cook. I like to try new dishes, stay connected with friends, travel, spend time with my family. Learn. I love to read, listen to podcasts.
All right, last question. Do you enjoy Christmas music?
I do.
All right, good. How about you, Daniel?
I do. I love Christmas music.
I'm glad I hear you both that. So, it's so great that you're here. Appreciate you coming in and taking some of your time to be part of Issues and Attitudes today. Hope you have a great holiday season, and we look forward to having you back.
Thanks, Jeff and Dan and Cody. Appreciate it.
Everybody have a great day. We are WEIU.